أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله الذي لا يبلغ مدحته القائلون ولا يحصي نعماءه العادون ولا يؤدي حقه المجتهدون، الذي لا يدركه بعد الحمم ولا يناله غوص الفطن، ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين، حبيب قلوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا والشفيع ذنوبنا، سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم محمد وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين، لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين، صاحب العصر والزمان، خليفة الرحمن، إمام الإنس والجان، ولعن الله أعداءهم أجمعين إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد، فقد قال الله وقوله الحق. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا استجيبوا لله ولرسوله إذا دعاكم لما يحييكم. صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. Developing Islamic courage has been our ongoing topic. Tonight is lecture number 4. We have up until now attempted to talk a little bit about the concept of Islamic shuja'at, what it means to become a shaji in Islam, a courageous man in Islam. And we talked about the fact that courage that is required in this day and age is not a physical one. It's one of morality and one of spirituality, where Islam recognizes the courageous man or individual of the time as the one who does what the deen is asking him to do, even if that means you put your own personal desires aside. One lesson we learned from the Shuhada of Karbala on the day of Ashura was they never once thought about what they wanted or they needed. Everything was about Abu Abdullah and his mission. And as difficult as it was for them to watch what was going on around them, they realized if they took things in their own hands, that would be going against the essence of wilayat and essentially not being courageous at that time. In this day and age as well, when sometimes we want to allow our emotions and our energy to take the better of ourselves and we do things on our own, we make our own decisions. That's not what the deen wants. The deen says, understand what Islam wants from you and act accordingly. And sometimes how to understand what Islam wants from us comes from our leadership, our ulama, our maraji, our rahbariyat. All these different aspects have to be listened to and respected. Otherwise, what ends up happening is there's chaos. And we have enough chaos right now in the Islamic world for us to add to that. We need to be courageous. We talked yesterday a little bit about the concept of this hadith by Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wassalam, where he says the courageous one of you, the most courageous one of you is sultanan ala nafsihi, is the one who has authority over himself. So we understand that courage is an inside-out process. It starts within, and then it comes out of you. That if you're able to conquer the inside of yourself and be the sultan of yourself, then you've begun the process of courage. And we talked about the animalistic side of ourselves. We talked about shaitan and his works. We talked about the angelic side of our dimension. We talked about many things. Today, we talk a little bit about the spark inside of us. You see, The discussion of migration, hijrat in Islam, is a very beautiful one. And the Quran paints this picture of a muhajir that is equal to a mujahid as well. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Inna alladhina amanu walladhina hajaru wa jahadu fi sabilillah ulaika yarjuna rahmatullah. Three groups of people: the Ahl Iman, the Ahl Hijrat, the Ahl Jihad. These are three people who, if they are doing what they're doing properly, there are individuals who can expect the mercy of Allah. And they're doing this what? Fi sabilillah, on the path of Allah. Now, when we think about migration, we think about a physical migration from India to, let's say, Los Angeles. From Pakistan to, let's say, Los Angeles. From Africa to Los Angeles. From Lebanon to Los Angeles. From Iran, let's say, or Iraq, let's say, to Los Angeles. And a migration in our eyes is one physical location to another physical location. And yeah, there's also hijrat, no doubt. But the Quran is talking about the hijrat of not the physical location, but a spiritual level altogether. Where if you are moving from one physical geographical location to another, the spiritual migration is from one level on the ladder towards Allah to another level on that ladder. For example, on the night of Hijrat, when our Holy Prophet Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, when he made his intentions to migrate from Mecca to Medina, and as you know, the tribes came together to conspire this idea that we will kill the Holy Prophet, and that one member of each tribe will be there so that no tribe is blamed for that. So otherwise, if one tribe carries out the execution, then of course Abu Talib and the Bani Hashim will come and avenge that death. If one member of each tribe is there on that night, then he can't fight them all. So after attempting to destroy the mission of the Holy Prophet, bribing him, offering him women, offering him government, offering him money, offering him anything he wants, just stop preaching the idea of Tawheed, he refused. They banished him, abandoned him in Shib Abu Talib for 3 years. Put sanctions on them, economic sanctions, social sanctions. Don't trade with these people, don't marry your daughters to these individuals. Nobody. They're completely to be isolated and ostracized. When that didn't work, the next logical plot was to kill the man. When the night of Hijrat happened, as many of you know, the beautiful story, and he was told of this plot to assassinate himself, he approaches Amir al-Mu'mineen and says, "Can you sleep in my bed tonight?" And the one question Amir al-Mu'mineen asked very famously is that, by me sleeping in this bed, will your life be saved? The Prophet says, yes, you'll be saved. And that's all that Ali needed to hear. He slept in that bed. And when that night came, when the Prophet physically left from Mecca to Medina, we believe there was one migration that night. There wasn't. There was 2 migrations that night. One migration was a man who physically left from Mecca to Medina, and one migration was a man who on his soul level went from one level to Allah's pleasure to another level of Allah's pleasure.
Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad.
Sallu ala Muhammad. When the Quran talks about this idea that there are those who sell their souls for the pleasure of this world, and there are those who sell their souls for the pleasure of Allah, this ayat was revealed on the night of Hijrat. The Prophet left, he walked towards Medina, he was gone. But even though Imam Ali was physically in one spot, his soul was going up the rungs of the ladder of spirituality. So migration, hijrat, has many different meanings to it. When the Quran talks about this idea of the Ahl Hijrats, are those who are the Mujahid fi sabilillah, It's not easy. It's not easy, first of all, to up and leave your country and come here. Those of you of my elders who have done that, albeit it's been 20 years, 25 years, 30 years, 10 years. It's never easy. And what you've done and why you did it is something that us as the next generation should recognize and appreciate. Right now, the East is in chaos. And had your parents not made that move, let's say from Pakistan to LA, or let's say from Lebanon, Iraq, Afghanistan, wherever you're from, nowadays, unfortunately, it doesn't matter really. There's chaos and tyranny and oppression everywhere. There's a threat to the life of the Muslims in all aspects in all countries. Some are more than others, of course. But if that didn't happen, if our parents didn't make that very difficult migration to leave the comforts of their family and their culture and their language and their friends and their childhood and set up shop in a place that was completely new to them. Culture was new, language was new, working odd jobs, 7 days a week, sometimes night shifts, sometimes the toughest of physical jobs just to put food on our table and clothes on our back. It's not easy. And it's not something you and I could do as this generation. If somebody asked us to get up and move, let's say, to China and set up shop in China, we'd think twice about it. But our parents did that. And as their children, we should respect that, we should appreciate it, and we should be thankful to them forever. That migration is tough enough, but what's tougher than that is a spiritual migration. And part of the idea of courage is a migration between one level to another. But first, in order, in my youth especially, first, in order for you to understand where you need to be, you have to know where you are right now. It sounds a little bit absurd. But the example I'll give you is very simple. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. My cough seems to be, alhamdulillah, 57% gone. But it took with it a little bit of my voice as well. So, the mic, alhamdulillah, is helping me right now. And your patience for the past 2 days has also been helping. And thank you for those who have been delivering drugs to my front door. I really appreciate that. Keep it coming, alhamdulillah. I'm surviving on those drugs right now. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. The example is very simple. You walk into a mall, a shopping mall. My youth, please listen to this very, 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 very carefully. You walk into a mall, and if you're a guy, you park at the exit nearest to your store. You walk in the mall, you go to your store, you walk to your car, you go home. If you're a girl, mashallah, you park at the farthest exit from the store you want to go to. You walk into the mall, and let's say for the first time you're in this mall. You have no idea where the stores are. And let's say you want to buy a pair of shoes. So you're looking for what? You're looking for that map that shows you the directory of the stores. And on that map of the directory of the stores, you're looking for that star that says what? You are here. The star says you are here. Based on that star, you are here, you can know I go up or down, left or right. Without knowing where you are in terms of the map, you could be going in the opposite direction. You'll get to the store eventually. The mall's only that big, but you'll be going around the entire mall. When you are able to understand where you start from, you're able to know, okay, from here, it's up one level, down a few stores, and that's where I should be. But initially, that route is not possible if you're not able to identify that star that says you are here. When it comes to our own map of spirituality, do we know where that star is that says you are here? Do we know where we are and where we should be? Because the migration that we're talking about tonight is a migration from mawjood to matlub. From existence to a desired state of existence. From the idea of being to the idea of where we should be. We should be somewhere else, we are somewhere else. We are right now biological Muslims, we should be haqiqi Muslims. We do certain things because our parents have taught us to do that. This migration from mawjood to matlub, from is to should be. Mawjood means to exist. You exist at one level. Matlub is a desired state of existence. What is our desired state of existence? Do we even know? How does Allah want us to exist? How does Allah want us to be? Where should we be and where are we now? Do we even identify that? Because the reality is a part of the process that stops us from this migration from mawjood to matlub is fear. Fear. And fear is the greatest motivator. And fear should be our motivator. But the problem is that we fear the wrong things. Our hadiths tell us that when you fear everybody, you don't fear Allah. But when you fear Allah, you don't fear anybody else. Very simple. Our fear is something else. That if I try, if I begin to creep up that ladder of spirituality and start to become more of a Muslim, then I could be losing certain friends of mine who can't keep up with my progress as a Muslim. So what do? I stay where I am purposely so I can maintain my circle of influence. If I break from my circle of influence, they can't keep up. Now they don't have the motivation to keep going up with me. They will basically isolate me, and that scares me. So what do? I stop trying. I stop trying. I can do more. I know I can do more. It's inside of me. I purposely block that progress. I don't want to know where I am on the map of the mall. I'm okay where I am, wherever I am. Because I'm happy with my circle, I'm happy with my little life I have created around me. What should happen, and this is a beautiful hadith by Imam Jafri as-Sadiq alayhi salatu wasalam. These are beautiful words. He says, as you go up the ladder of spirituality, if you go up one level, very carefully, please. If you go up one level, don't ever look down on the person beneath you as someone who's beneath you. Understand two things. Number one, that you were at one moment on the same level as they were. Secondly, don't sit there and say, I pity you. Say, no, here's my hand, I'll help you up to my level. What do? A little bit of tawfiq. Our beard gets a little bit thicker. The hijab now starts to include sleeves and socks now, mashallah. A little bit of better taqwa and piety. A couple of Karbalas, maybe a hajj here and there, maybe a topi now on my head, this and that. And now, you become Captain Islam. There's a crescent and a star on your chest. You have a cape on and you're flying around and you're saving the masses from the ignorance that you were at mere weeks ago. And the deen of Islam should make you more open-minded. But the more we go into the deen, the more narrow-minded we become. The problem today, like I mentioned in the very first speech, which seems like it was months ago now, was the fact that the deen of Islam today, the ISIS of Islam today, is presenting the deen to be a very, very, very exclusive deen. This is my deen. It's a small box. If you don't fit in this box, you're not worthy of living. You're wajib qatl in my eyes. I will behead you, hang you in your neighborhood and beat your body with a stick because you're not fit in my little small box. The deen never came for that. Imam Muhammad Baqir alayhi salatu wasalam. Allahu Akbar. Imam Muhammad Baqir in a hadith, beautiful hadith. I mentioned this in UK as well. Those of you who heard my series, you'll recognize this. They say that he was a farmer, our fifth Imam was. He worked in the fields. And let me also say this as well. There's also a very nice tradition that he says that one time he was farming, and when you farm, you get down on your knees, you get really into it, you really use your hands. And a few companions came across him doing this, and they said, Ya Ibn Rasulullah, you're the Imam al-Waqt. What is this? What are you doing? Go to the masjid and read the Quran, some du'as, do something, leave this up for us. His hands were dirty, he was really getting into it. He says, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes me from this world in this state I'm in right now, I will die as shaheed, he says. He used to, the hadith tells us that he would plant seeds of wheat. He would plant wheat and grow wheat himself. Listen very carefully, please. He would grow wheat, he'd turn that wheat into flour. He would sit there, he would knead the flour, he would bake his own bread. Those of you who have been to Mashhad, you know that in Mashhad every single day in Imam Radha's Haram, they have a dastakhan, a sufra, for those who are the non-Iranian visitors of Imam Raza's shrine. Many of you have gone, I think. You go and you are allowed a ticket, you go and you have lunch there. All paid for by our 8th Imam. It's the most delicious food you've ever had. They sit there, and sometimes what our people do is they break down pieces of the naan, the bread, they put it in a bag and they take it home with them. That's tabarruk. And once in a while, they'll either put it inside their food or they'll eat it to remind them of that food. That was bread that was baked in the haram of our 8th Imam. This is bread being baked by the hands of our 5th Imam. The barakat is different. He would bake fresh bread from himself, from inception all the way until the completion of the bread. The companions would ask him, why are you doing this? He would take the bread, he would go to non-Muslim neighborhoods, and he would feed them the bread. And the companions would ask him, why are you doing this? Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. And they would ask him, why are you doing this? Look at his response. Look at his response. He says that if by chance, by them eating this bread, they might get some tawfiq to come on the path of Islam, then I've done my job. Look at the exclusive nature of the beheading of ISIS. Look at the inclusive nature of our 5th Imam's deen. With the bread that I baked with my own hands, I could call them towards my path. He's not going with a sword, saying either give bay'at or you're beheaded. He's going with a plate of bread and saying, if you eat this, maybe the barakat from my hands might call you towards the deen. If not, no problem. I give you fresh bread, no problem. The story of Mubahila that we celebrate before the arrival of the month of Muharram. What happened in Mubahila? The Christians of Najran came, challenged the Holy Prophet. The 5 participants walked into the masjid. They surrendered. The priest says that by Allah, inside their faces, I see the ilm. That if they speak about this ilm, the mountains will crumble in submission to them. Did the Prophet of Allah, after Mubahala, say, now that you have accepted me, convert to Islam? No, he didn't do that. He says, come, stay within the Islamic State, but pay the jizya, the Islamic tax. Right now in Iran, there are Jews, there are Christians living very comfortably. I've seen with my own eyes in Tehran, huge synagogues, huge churches. They could be 1% of the population, but they're so comfortable. They have a voice in the parliament, they have their rights given, they are told that you will not be harmed. Israel comes and offers the Jews money to come live in Israel. They say, no, we're good in Iran. We're comfortable here. Sometimes the fear that we have to lose everybody around us causes us to avoid that migration from mawjood to matlub, from is to should be. We are sometimes traveling on the path of is. And after a while, it should be where we should be at. We have this fear. And fear and hope, you've heard this many times, khawf and raja, inside of a mu'min, are equal parts inside the heart. Again, our sixth Imam says, if you measure the amount of fear and the amount of hope inside of a mu'min's heart, it's the exact same weight. We have hope of Allah's mercy, we have fear of committing a sin against Him. Now there are extremes, of course. I know people, you know people, who are so fearful of Allah, my youth especially. You commit a couple of sins at the age of 15 or 16, and you've convinced yourself that you are hellbound. I'm not worthy of God's mercy. Who am I for Him to sit there and give risk to? Who am I for Him to sit there and even consider? I've had 16-year-olds come and tell me that, Sayyid, I have convinced myself that I won't make it into Jannat in the hereafter, so I'm going to make this world my Jannat and the next world my hell. At 16 years old. That's extreme fear. Then you have those who are extremely hopeful, who commit sin after sin, sin after sin, and they tell themselves, it's Allah who tells us that every act you do, remember my rahmaniyat and my rahimiyat. I'm simply giving him an opportunity to forgive me, to bless me with his forgiveness. We're so hopeful that we become delusional. It's like you guys who are in school right now, university, college, high school, all semester long. You guys don't do any work. I don't do any work, let's say, if I'm in high school. I skip classes, I sit in the back, I'm on my phone, there's no notes at all. When it comes time for the final exam, I completely bomb the exam. And then I go knocking on the door of the prof. I go, look, prof, man, help me out, man. Just squeeze me through, please. I can't. If I miss this class, I won't graduate. He'll say, on what basis am I going to give you any mark? You came late to my class. You skipped every second class. You would sit in the back. You wouldn't take any notes. I mean, did you earn this idea? We become delusional. So much fear, we become hopeless. Our sixth Imam says, no, it's the equal weight. But what is this fear about? The Ahlul Bayt's fear are one, our fear is another. Imam Ali very famously, alayhi salatu wasalam, sallallahu Muhammad wa Muhammad. He says in Nahj al-Balagha that we worship Allah for three reasons, right? Hope, fear, and love. You guys have heard it 1,000 times. And all three are accepted. If you have worshipped Allah up until now your entire life for the hopes of heaven, it's accepted. The fear of hell, it's accepted. But the ultimate level of worship is the idea of the ahrar, he says, the one who is free. Free of what? Free of the hope for heaven, free of the fear of hell. And you are worshipping Allah because He's worthy of worship. I wake up Allah every single morning before the sun rises, and I pray my 2 rakat salat because you're worthy of that worship. I fast in the heat of the LA summers for 15 hours sometimes. I don't know about here. In Toronto, our iftar sometimes at 9:30 at night. Our suhoor at 3:30 in the morning. Your iftar is your suhoor. 16-hour fast, 17-hour fast. Where people come to me and say, look, Malana, come on, can we not average it out or something? This is too much now. I'm sure the Prophet didn't want us to fast 16 hours. I said, look, the winter times when you fast 8 hours, you don't come and ask for an average out. But in the summertime, when it's 16 hours, we're looking for some sort of a bargain. This is not a flea market. You're coming to bargain prices with me. I do that because you're worthy of worship. But Ali's fear could be seen in Dua Kumail that we recite every single Thursday. He says what? Sabartu ala adabik fakayfa asburu ala firaqik. That suppose, just suppose, I can endure your punishment. You'll squeeze my grave, I'll take it. You'll lash me, I'll take it. You'll put me in the hellfire, I'll take it. What I cannot endure is separation from you. What I can't endure is separation from you. Ali's fear had nothing to do with what the world might think of them. Ali's fear is a distance between me and my Creator. My heaven is my closeness to Allah. My hell is my distance from Allah. That's it. Now you talk about houris, you talk about gardens, you talk about milk and rivers and all that, and we want that. That's fine. Oh, we'll talk about castles and scorpions and fire and the hellfire, we'll talk about that. But Imam Ali says, forget all that. My heaven, my hell is completely and absolutely associated with my proximity to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that comes, guys, when you have immense certainty in your deen. And that's one thing that needs to be worked on here in the West amongst all of us, is this shaky foundation when it comes to our deen has to be solid. When Imam Ali is preparing his soldiers for battle, he says, don't be a flag in the wind. Where the wind goes, you go. If the wind goes right, you go right. It goes left, you go left. Be a mountain where no matter how much is going on around you, you don't leave from where you are. That's how Iman should be. Right now, our faith is like a flag. This year it's flying this way. Our Iman will go this way. This year it's flying this way. We'll go this way. And the flag goes where the wind goes. It has no direction itself. The mountain, however, is where it is. Everything around it is moving. The mountain's not moving at all. And Islamic courage requires us to be certain in our deen. And certainty comes from skepticism. We are the only madhab, and I say this with complete conviction, we are the only school of thought within Islam and only school of thought in any religion that actually challenges its followers to go and question the religion you believe in. Question it, doubt it, don't be a blind follower. We don't need habitual and biological believers. We want somebody who believes and will give their life for the deen. Go out and question, no doubt. Go ahead. The yaqeen comes where? That once you search for your answer, you'll end up exactly in front of that same door that you began. We look at our 5th and 6th Imam's life, where that Oj, that extreme, that highest level of the Shia university opened up, when Bani Abbas and Bani Umayyah were busy fighting each other. That's when our 5th and 6th Imam really took it upon themselves to spread the deen of the Ahlul Bayt. 4,000 students. The Hawza was open door policy. Muslims and Shias and would come and knock on the door of our 5th and 6th Imam, asking them all sorts of questions. Answer them one by one. In the process, they created a culture of asking questions. My youngsters today, I love you guys. Why? You guys ask questions. Oh man, do you ask questions. And some of you ask questions looking for a certain answer, which is always dangerous. And some of you ask questions to know and to understand. It's a culture our parents just aren't used to. It's a culture our parents never came or never were involved in. You heard something from the member, you heard something in your madrasa, you just acted upon it. Don't question it. Definitely don't approach the alim and ask him. He's untouchable. He walks and you remain 5 feet away from him. There's a force around him. Don't get too close. Zzz, you might get zapped. Stay away. Don't even, look him in the eye. That's their generation. Our generation is what? Let's go for a coffee. Let's go to IHOP. Let's go to Famous. Can I tweet you? Can I create a Facebook page about you? Can I text you at 3 o'clock in the morning? Absolutely you can. Because this culture of asking questions is what will build your certainty in the deen. But, and this is where I really warn my youth, this ghurur that sometimes you guys show us. You see, look. Our first Imam says, Al-Islam huwa al-taslim, wal-taslim huwa al-yaqeen. And he goes on, it's a very lengthy hadith. Islam is submission. Submission is certainty. Our youth sometimes have it flipped. Islam is certainty. Certainty then is submission. Make me certain first, and then I'll submit. He says, no. Submit first. And in that submission is your certainty. There's a big difference. Sometimes, Syed, I will do this if you convince me why I'm doing it. Okay. I can tell you I've had 5-hour debates, one-on-one, with a brother over coffee that he pays for. And he buys me coffee, doesn't buy me like a muffin, he's a very cheap, anyways. It's $1 coffee, anyways. 5-hour debates about certain topics. And after 5 hours, dalil upon dalil, hadith upon the hadith, verse upon verse, I'm sweating, my voice is going, I'm coughing, everything, nothing. After a while, he goes, okay, I'll think about it. It's the ghurur. It's the unwillingness to submit to something you don't completely believe in. Look, the example I gave a couple of years back in Toronto was this. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. In school in Toronto, from grade 1 up until my final year in university, I was fond of English. I enjoyed English. I liked Shakespeare. I liked writing. I enjoyed classes like philosophy and discussions. What I didn't like was math. Wasn't a big math guy. Wasn't very successful at it. I didn't like it. All the way from 1 + 1 = 2 to calculus. I would avoid it. I would run from it. It's my kryptonite. That's how much I'm full of myself. I think I'm Superman, and it's my kryptonite. And while I was going through math, I didn't understand it. Given y, tell me what x is. Who cares? A = this, give me b, c squared. What are you talking about? Like, this is wasting my time. I don't understand it. After I came out of that math world, I understood something. That math was nothing but the idea that if I give you certain values, you can tell me what the unknown is. That's the summary of math. If I give you X, you give me Y. It's a beautiful science. Because sometimes in life, not everything is pointed out for you. What is pointed out for you are some of the basics. There's a lot to be unknown. You can make those things known by what you know already. I didn't see that while I was going through the actual classes. Grade 10 math, grade 11 math. My senior year in high school, let's say, for example. Finite and algebra and calculus, I didn't like it. I still don't like it. But I didn't understand it until I came out of it. But I had to go through it to get to that understanding. Sometimes through debates and conversations and back and forth emails, you don't get that certainty that you feel when 3 o'clock in the morning the entire world is sleeping and you are in sajda saying Subhana Rabbina ala wa bihamdi. That level of certainty you have when your forehead hits that khaki shifa, that turba of Imam Hussein, when everyone else is snoring and you are busy with the dhikr of Allah, that yaqeen you have will never be attained with reading books and debating with an alim and discussing with your friend and all these things. Sometimes you have to submit to be certain of what you're submitting for. Do you understand that as youth? Because sometimes there's, convince me, wow me, why am I doing this? I won't do it until I'm convinced. Look, you're limited. Your understanding is limited. You're trying to understand an unlimited source of Sharia. It's God's wisdom why He does certain things. And yes, while there's an element that we know that there is logic behind everything, it's not His logic that's a problem. It's our capacity to understand that logic. When 4 different people are approaching our 6th Imam with the exact same question, and he's giving 4 different answers, the companion says, Ya Ibn Rasulullah, it was the exact same question. Why the 4 different answers? He says, I answered each individual according to their capacity. If I gave one answer to another, he would understand it. Our capacity is different. And sometimes our capacity grows when we submit, guys. That submission creates certainty. Once you're certain of what you believe in, forget it. They will pound you, they'll send you dollars upon dollars, and they will try their best to crack your foundation. It's not going anywhere. Our 6th Imam says the one who enters the religion of Islam because of people will exit because of people. But the one who enters the religion because of the Quran and the Sunnah, mountains will move, he will not leave the deen at all. Allahumma salli ala. So this concept of fear should be there. But our fear is of our proximity to Allah, not what others might think. If those around you are there and they're not allowing you to progress towards Allah and they made you feel like you're guilty, then take them with you. Especially in our families, we see sometimes, the husband and the wife got married at the same level of spirituality sometimes. Very few times do we see that a husband who perhaps is not so practicing marries a very muttaqi, pious, muhajjaba sister. Very few times do we see that. And the other way around. Do we see, let's say, quote unquote, you call it a moderate Muslim, marries an individual who's got a big beard and he's constantly praying salat and this and that. Very few times do we see these matches happening. Usually you seek that individual who has the same level of spirituality that you have. But eventually, I've seen it 5 years, 10 years into the marriage, what ends up happening is that a spark happens inside one of them. The wife goes to Karbala, she comes back, she's a brand new person. Now she wants to wear hijab. The husband says, no, I didn't marry a hijabi. You want to wear hijab? I don't want you wearing hijab. You look like an auntie right now. I don't want that to happen. I've had sisters come to me and say, look, what do? I want to wear hijab. My husband tells me I look ugly in hijab. I don't want to come near you when you wear hijab. I said, look, why are you wearing hijab in the house, first of all? Secondly, we have to understand the mentality. No one's asking you to go in different paths. The Quran says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, qu anfusikum wa ahlikum naran. Safeguard yourselves and your family from the fire. It has to be a journey. If your wife has taken off on you spiritually, it's up to your wife to be patient and pull your husband back up. If you as a husband, mashallah, you go for 7 straight hajjs, you leave your family at home. You go to Najaf by yourself, leave your family at home. First 10 days of Muharram by yourself in Karbala, your family's at home. What do you expect? What's going to happen? Now those dinners that are allowed in Islam, you're like, no, I don't go for dinner. She wants to watch a movie with you. No movies. And then she'll complain, say, Malana, he used to be fun. He used to want to eat dinner with me. A walk in the park. No, there's some non-Mahrams in our community. I can't go out. Wait a second now. And now she thinks that that's what the deen is, a very Talibani, Al-Qaidi deen, which is just rigid. Just sit there in the room and say, Allah, 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 Allah. No, it's not like that, man. It's not the deen at all. But that's the presentation of it. Sometimes we have to understand our youth especially. If you are a Sunday school teacher, a Saturday school teacher, a parent of a child in his teenage years or even younger, how you present the deen is very, very important. If I came to you with your favorite meal, okay, I'm a steak guy, big surprise. I like steaks. Steak, a little bit of, potatoes, a little bit of fries. maybe some vegetables, maybe. Even those have to be covered in gravy. Anyways, all of that is presented to me on the bottom of a garbage can lid. Took out the garbage can lid, you flip it, you put the whole meal in there. The meal is delicious. The presentation is disgusting. What will I do? I'll reject it. We've presented the deen to our youth like that. Everything is halal or haram. You don't do this, you will burn in hell. You'll be hung from your hair. Everything is laws. Everything is yeses or nos, jais or not jais. We have Q&As with our youth, mashallah. Everything is either about socks or tattoos, or is this halal, is that haram? Can I go to Subway and cut the knife and wash the gloves? And that's it. That's our deen. Our deen is Subway and tattoos. That's our deen. Because that's how it's been presented. To be a series of yeses and nos. The Quran is nothing but a code of laws. Baba, 8% of the 66,000 verses of the Quran are about fiqh only. 500 verses are about fiqh. Everything else is about you and your existence. Where you're going, where you're headed, what's your journey? What are you doing? Contemplation, tadabbur, tafakkur, all these things. Think about what's going on. None of that. It's all about halal, haram, halal, haram, halal, haram. They ask a question, we give a long answer, half an hour. At the end, Malana, is it halal or haram? That's it. Sometimes it's not that simple, right? So part of the process, there are three. And we'll go towards Masayib. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Number one is migration. There has to be a spiritual migration. Now we all go through. Between is and should be. Mawjood and matloob. We should be somewhere else right now. Otherwise the Imam will be with us. He's not with us. We're not doing something right as a nation. Otherwise he'd be with us right now. The dushman's doing their job. They're doing the dhulm. We have to do our job to get the Imam here. He's still not here, guys. So this migration from is and should be hasn't happened. The very first step is to sit there and look inside your map of the soul for that star that says you are here. Once you know where you are, you will know where you should be, and you start from there. That requires some self-analysis, which we hate doing. Rip ourselves apart. Turn ourselves inside and out. Like I said last night, analyze us. Stop and think about ourselves. Don't drown out our souls. Listen to our nafs. Point number two is understand that fear is the biggest motivator. But point that fear accordingly. Don't fear people, fear your Creator. Once you fear Allah, Allah will create fear in the eyes of others for you. And that's what we want. We want to be fearless for others and fearful of God. That is the equation. And point number three is certainty. Certainty. Ask questions from the right sources. Don't ask the same question to every alim that comes into Alwalayah hoping for a loophole. I'm sorry. You trust a couple of sources, ask them, and then follow it. If you're asking to gain your knowledge, Allah loves that. Our sixth Imam says the ilm is inside of a door. The door is locked. The key to that door are questions. You have the opportunity now. Individuals coming out of the house right now are approachable. We try to be at least. And break down these walls between us and you, which was there in our parents' generation. Take advantage of that. I can tell you on behalf of our colleagues, we are looking forward to this. We have an all-night session with some of you guys, and we actually believe that you are there to learn. There's nothing else that we want. Sleep, food, everything goes out the window. Your voice goes out the window. Who cares? As long as one person is able to take that one step between is and should be. Mawjood to matloob. A spiritual migration. Allah says if you do that, you are somebody who has the right to expect Allah's mercy. As long as it's fi sabilillah, on the path to Allah. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Sallu ala Muhammad. Tomorrow night, of course, marks the shab of the shahadat of our fourth Imam, and we think about the musibat of our fourth Imam, if I can paint a picture for you tonight, do we understand this journey that they went through from Karbala to Sham? Let me give you some numbers to make you understand how difficult this is. Right now, if you measure the distance between Karbala and Sham, we're talking about 500 miles, which is a 7-hour drive. They went on camels. They say camels walk at the same speed of rate that humans do. 2 to 3 kilometers an hour. You do the hisab, we're talking about a 14-day journey on foot at 13, 14 hours a day if they stopped and they rested at night. Okay, stop and think about these things. Now that is difficult when you're comfortable. It's sheer impossibility when your children and your women and you are tied together with one rope. Where the older men and the older women have to bow down and kneel down and bow down their heads and back to make sure the rope doesn't choke the small children. To ride on a camel without a saddle or any sort of a rope, let's say for example, is almost difficult. You're constantly trying to keep your balance. For a 4-year-old, it's very difficult. On top of that, our fourth Imam was shackled. His hands were shackled. His feet were shackled. His neck was shackled. From what? From the steel iron rod clamps around his neck. The desert hot sun was hitting those metal rods around his neck. A 14-hour journey, a 14-day journey, 700 kilometers, 500 miles. In that situation, in that state, how difficult is that? And that's after him seeing what he saw. And that's after him being so sick that he would fall in and out of consciousness. And all the while, he's walking in this difficult 2-week journey with the head of his father on a spear in front of him. A constant reminder of that moment where Bibi Zainab was on Tele Zainabiyah, screaming at Umar ibn Sa'd, saying, Umar ibn Sa'd, this is the son of Fatima. This is the son of Fatima. Are you seriously going to do this? To the point where when that khak of the Karbala settled, and she saw the body of Abu Abdullah lying on the ground headless, she looked at the body and she said, Anta akhi, this is my brother. That's my brother on the plains of Karbala. When Imam Sajjad heard that statement, that cry, قَدْ قُتِلَ حُسَيْنِ بِكَرْبَلَا, he looked outside his tent and all he saw was his father's head on the Nok and Neza, on that spear. They say 200 children left with them in Karbala. Only 50 made it to Sham. How they died, when they died, what happened when they died. Are we to believe that these mal'oon stopped, even buried these small children? I don't know. I don't even want to think about that. Imam Sajjad is the only male in that qafila. This is very difficult for him to go through. And when they want to cry for his Hussein, they would lash them. When the kids wanted to cry for their Baba, they would slap them. When Imam Sajjad for a moment wanted to remember his father, he would be slapped. That's why when Yazid came to Imam Sajjad and said, I'm giving you freedom now, and you have two choices. The route goes to Medina, the route also goes back to Karbala. Where do you want to go? And he said, let me ask my aunt. He says, Pupi Amma, we have choices to make. Yazid has given us our release. Do we go to Medina or do we go to Karbala? And she began to cry and said, Sajjad, I have yet to cry for my Hussein. Take me back to Karbala. Let me cry for my Hussein. That's why Jabir narrates that when this qafila came back from Sham, Bibi Zainab went rushing towards the grave of Abu Abdullah, collapsed on the grave and said, Bhaiya, for the first time since Ashur, I've been able to cry for you. She would take the khak of Karbala and put it on her hair, and she would say to Imam Hussein that, Bhaiya, half of my heart is full of joy, the other half is full of grief. Why, Bibi Zainab? Because half of my heart I'm now able to cry for you without being slapped, without being lashed, without anybody bothering me. But my other heart is in complete pieces. Why? Because you gave me, Imam Hussein, Bhaiya, you gave me a 4-year-old amanat on the day of Ashura, and you said, Zainab, look after my sakina. Bhaiya, I've left my sakina in Sham. Imam Sajjad is watching all of this. Imam Sajjad is watching all of this. Our salams to you, Ya Zain al-Abidin. If it wasn't enough, when he got back to Medina, for 2 years, Yazid still ruled. But there came a moment on the day of Ashura where we hear about these musibat and these masa'ib, and our heart breaks. We can't take it, even to the point where if somebody recites the masa'ib for too long, our tears dry up because we feel like this is too much. 20 minutes sometimes of masa'ib is an eternity. We're talking about the day of Ashura that lasted over 10 hours. That conversation that happened between Ali Akbar and Imam Hussein. Aidul Naimi narrates that when I read the musibat of Abu Abdullah one night, he came in my dream, and standing in front of me from head to toe, he is covered in arrows. The next night, when I read the musibat again, I saw Abu Abdullah again, and this time all the arrows are gone except for 2. He says, Mawla, last night you were covered in arrows. Tonight there's only 2 arrows. He says, Naini, every single time that my Shias cry for me, 1 arrow is taken out of my body. He says, Mawla, what about these 2 arrows? He says, Naini, no matter how much my Shias cry for me, these 2 arrows will never leave me. One is the arrow of Abul Fazl al-Abbas, and the other arrow is of my Ali Akbar. The one shahada that almost killed my Mawla was that of Ali Akbar. Ali Akbar was everything to Imam Hussein. Imam Sajjad, they say from the tent, was witnessing this conversation. When Ali Akbar comes to Imam Hussein, says, Baba, I need ijazat now to go. Imam Hussein gave ijazat and permission immediately. But he said, look, you have to go and get permission from your aunt Bibi Zainab. Ali Akbar went inside the tent. Our books tell us the tent opened and closed at least 10 different times. That every single time Ali Akbar wanted to leave the khayma, another woman would pull him back and say, "Who are you leaving us with?" Somebody would kiss his hand, somebody would pull his abba, somebody would hug him, somebody would hold on to his feet. They would not let him go. When finally he broke free and came outside, Imam Hussein mounted him on the horse. He says, "Ali Akbar, if you can, Ali Akbar, every so often turn your face back towards me so I could see you. Every time I looked at you, you resembled my grandfather." Ali Akbar begins to ride inside the Maidan of Karbala, and our books say that he could hear somebody following him behind him. He looks behind, he sees a 57-year-old man, father running behind Ali Akbar. Ali Akbar stops, gets off the horse, hugs Imam Hussein and says, "Baba, you gave me ijazat, Baba. You gave me permission." Imam Hussein looks at him. Imam Hussein is a father. Imam Hussein has a heart like you and I. Imam Hussein looks at him and says, "If only you were sahib-e-awlad like I am. If only you had a son in Ali Akbar like you do, like I do, you would know how difficult this moment is." Ali Akbar goes towards the Maidan of Karbala. He gets struck with the spear. I don't have the heart or the himmah to write the entire shahadat. Imam Sajjad is listening to this. He falls from the horse. "Alayka minni salam, ya abata." Accept my last salam, oh Baba. Imam Hussein comes running towards the Maidan of Karbala. For every other shaheed, for everybody else, Imam Hussein would put the head of the shaheed on his lap. But with Ali Akbar, he put the cheek of Ali Akbar against his own cheek and began to rub his cheek against his. And Ali Akbar says, "Baba, there's pain in my chest, Baba. There's pain in my chest." Ali Akbar is laid down on the plains of Karbala. A spear is stuck in his chest. Imam Hussein grabs the spear, looks towards Najaf and says, "Baba, you are the one that opened the door of Khaybar, that took 40 men to open and close. But have you ever ripped a spear out of your young son's chest? Come to Karbala. Look at your Hussein. Look at my Ali Akbar." سيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. Matemir Hussein.